In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at Sony's 16mm f2.8 lens for the E-mount. Let's get right into it. So this lens costs about $250 new, but used on eBay you can get it for closer to $100. So at that price, it's definitely one of Sony's cheapest lenses for their APS-C lineup, especially on the used market. So first things first, I'm going to go over some of the specs of this lens, and then I'm going to show some examples of videos and pictures taken with it, and then at the end I'll get into if this lens is worth picking up in 2020. So starting off, this is a 24mm equivalent lens on an APS-C camera like a Sony NEX or an A6000 series camera. So it's a wide angle lens. It's not a super wide, but 24mm is definitely on the wide side of lenses. So this should be good for any sort of astrophotography or landscape pictures or videos. It's probably not going to be quite wide enough for things like interior real estate photography or videos or anything like that. At 24mm, you definitely want something a little wider, like 18 to 20mm equivalent. But this lens is still a nice wide angle. You can still get good landscape shots and just any sort of wide angle pictures or videos. Also, the close focus distance is 9.45 inches or 24 centimeters. Also, this lens does not have any sort of weather sealing, so there's no gasket on the mount or anything like that, so definitely don't take this out in the rain or the snow or anything like that. And also this lens is made almost entirely out of plastic. It's decent quality plastic, but it's still plastic either way, besides the lens mount, which is made out of metal. And when it comes to size and weight, this lens, you won't even notice it on your camera. It basically weighs nothing, and it's so small it's not gonna add any length or weight to your camera or anything. I mean, it's basically like there's nothing on the camera, which is awesome because some lenses, like the one I'm recording with right now, it's like a foot long, you know, it just weighs the camera down. This lens is not gonna do that. You won't even notice it on your camera. And last but not least, this is an f2.8 lens, which is a pretty wide aperture, so it's gonna be decent in low light conditions. And also you're gonna get some good shallow depth of field as long as you're close up to a subject. Now this isn't gonna be something good for portraits or anything like that because it's such a wide lens that even at an f2.8 aperture, you're still not gonna get very good bokeh, unless of course you're really close to something. But besides that, you're really not going to get very good bokeh or shallow depth of field for most things. But if you are considering upgrading from the kit lens, like a 18 to 55 or the 16 to 50 kit lens, and you want to stick to 16mm, this is definitely going to be an improvement. If you're doing a sort of like vlogging or something, this will have a shallower depth of field and it will be a lot better in low light, and you're definitely going to notice a difference coming from the kit lens. Now that being said, this is still not a very sharp lens. At this price point, you can't really expect much, but it's just not very sharp. It has distortion. It's just not a great lens overall. Now, like I said, at this price point, you can't expect something amazing, but again, it's not very sharp. It has distortion. It's not gonna be a Canon L series type of lens. This is a cheap lens, but considering its price, it's definitely a great beginner lens to get into, and it's better than the kit lens if you wanna stick with the wide angle. So now that the specs are out of the way, let's get into the most important part, which is what this lens can actually do. So I'm gonna go ahead and show some video and photo examples with this lens, and then I'll get into if it's actually worth buying. So here's some examples of the 16mm f2.8 Sony lens. So to wrap things up, if you're upgrading from the kit lens, this is definitely an awesome lens to upgrade to. You can get this lens for super cheap on eBay, and it's gonna have a shallower depth of field, be better in low light, and just a really good vlogging lens or just a wide angle lens to upgrade from the kit lens. But this lens isn't gonna blow you away in any way at all. It's not super sharp, and it's not a great lens. Now, if you do want something that's gonna be sharper and even better in low light, have a shallower depth of field, I would recommend checking out the Sigma 16mm f1.4. This lens is closer to $300, so it's definitely more expensive than this lens, especially on the used market, but it's gonna be a heck of a lot sharper, it's gonna have a lot shallower depth of field, it's gonna be better in low light, and it's just overall a fantastic lens if you have a higher budget. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you have the budget for it. So all in all, if you want just a cheap upgrade from the kit lens or just a cheap wide-angle lens for your A6000 series or your NEX camera, I would recommend picking this up. Just don't expect it to be perfect or don't expect it to be amazing. But you can definitely get some great photos and video with this lens. And I've been having a lot of fun with it. I really love the wide angle lens on these APS-C cameras because the 18-55 kit lens just doesn't get this wide, and the 16mm kit lens just doesn't have very good shallow depth of field or very good low light performance. So I would recommend this if you want to get a really budget, cheap, wide angle lens for your APS-C Sony camera, but that's about it. If you have a higher budget, I'd recommend going to the Sigma or just something different than this lens. So that wraps up this video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you go down, hit subscribe, and like this video, and feel free to check out my other videos as well, and I'll see you in the next one.